one. Welcome to another, well, I won't say fun episode, another episode of Photoshop Party. This is probably almost our 70th party that we've had. So I want to welcome everybody for being here. And today we're going to do a couple of things. One, we're going to review using a layer mask and how to kind of paint out some stuff quickly. And then also we're going to get into composites and trying to match up, make it look like it belongs when it doesn't belong. So let's go ahead and I'm going to hit my share screen and we'll go into composites. Get that out of my picture. Everybody can see my screen now?
Yep.
Totally cool. Okay. If you look at the screen, you'll see I've already added the sky to it. So turn the sky on and turn the sky off. This is using Photoshop. And to paint out some of the blur, which you'll see a lot better when I zoom in, around the edge of the building, there's a little bit of a gray tone going around it. If I option click or alt click on the layer mask on the sky layer, it turns it to black and white. Here you can see you've got gray going around the building, and I want to get rid of that. So I'm going to paint with the black brush, B for brush, and make sure my color is set to black, which is RGB zeros. Hue, saturation, and brightness are zeros. And down at the bottom, you have the tic-tac-toe or number sign, which is the hexadecimal color. It should be 6 zeros, which it is. So we're definitely black. And I'm going to make my brush fairly large. And I am going to paint with white, I think, and make sure that my brush is in overlay mode. And basically what that does, it multiplies anything that's 50% gray or darker, and then it does that at half strength. And then at screen mode will do anything 50% gray or lighter at half strength. So overlay does both screen and multiply at the same time for you. So as I paint over it, you can see what it's doing is painting the white out, which is my sky, and leaving the darker colors, which is what I wanted kept. The lighthouse, make it a little bit smaller and go into this area over here. And then we'll option click to bring back. And you can see it did a little too far on the top of the lighthouse right there. So if I hit X to bring up black again,
Close the door.
okay, and we'll option click back out. You got a lot of it back, so life is good. It makes the cleaning up a whole lot easier. In fact, you can see I've got a little bit of gray right here. I don't know if you can see it on the screen on yours through the internet. Whoops. Change colors back to white and just kind of paint around a little bit in the sky. And you can see that it cleans up really well. It goes right up to the edge where the black starts and does a great job there. So that really helps clean things up for you. Hutch was asking about that last week, and I couldn't remember what I did to do that, so I had to review my own notes, and there you go. So to close this, Command or Control W, don't save. And I'm going to bring in a new picture, actually a couple of pictures real quick. And I'm going to go into Bridge, which you won't see me doing. And go to Tools. I'm getting there. Load files into Photoshop layers. Okay. I did something on Facebook the other day. I was kind of sort of joking around. I put a follow me sticker on the boat that kind of got stuck in the Suez Canal. I guess somebody was offended that I did that, but I did it anyway. What I want to do is, as you can see, that's not going to match very well. So let's go ahead and hit the magic wand, which used to be called the tragic wand, W for wand, and click on the white. If I click on the layer mask right now, what's going to happen is it's going to make the follow me disappear. So what I need to do, Command Z, and I need to hit a couple of ways to do it. One is go to select inverse, or what you can do is go to Command Shift I or Control Shift I on a PC, and it switches your selection around. And all I have to do now is go to the layer mask, click on a layer mask, and follow me as selected. Drag it to the position I want. Command T to make it a little bit smaller, and I've got to make sure that it flows the same direction. And to make it shrink inward, all I have to do is hit the Option or Alt key, drag the corner in, and it goes towards the middle, or wherever this little symbol is, and I can make sure it's in the middle. Make it a little bit smaller, drag it into place, hit return, and now you're going to see something that you don't want to see. I'm going to put a new layer on, fill it with black, and you can see around the edge of the follow me layer, I have a white line. Fastest way to do this is hit B for brush, make sure that black is selected, and make sure I'm on my layer mask.
An overlay.
I am an overlay. And you notice the first thing that happens when something doesn't go right, you go to your top menu right here and look to see why it's not working. That was quick and easy because I was in overlay. I thought it might have been at 10 or 20%, but I was at 100. So I'll just paint it out. And to make a straight line, click there, shift and click there. Get rid of that layer. I don't need it anymore. And now you'll notice that follow me is about the right size that I want it. However, the color and everything doesn't match very well. So let's get rid of the mask on here. So we'll just drag it down to the trash and click on apply. So that applies the mask. So that stays. And now you have the follow me all by itself. Couple ways we can do this. Number one, saturation is really bright, and also we can do levels or curves or exposure. Let's go ahead and do levels for fun. And we'll drag the dark slider over, and you can see it's doing both layers. Down at the bottom of the properties panel, if you can see where my mouse is circling, there's a little clipping mask icon. Just click on that. So it only does now just the follow me layer. And I'm not liking the levels, so I'm going to go back. No, quit messing with me. I'm going to drag it down to the trash. Let's go to curves. Try the curves. And again, it darkens both layers, so I'm not going to click on the clipping mask icon there. I'm going to click between and hold the Option key between the curves layer and the follow me layer. And you can see that the clipping mask icon comes up. Now it will only affect the follow me layer. So let's drag that over a little bit, drag it down, Bring the brightness down. Not too far because I don't want to lose the whole effect. And that's fairly good. I think I need to bring the saturation down to match the picture. So we'll go to hue saturation and create its own clipping mask for that as well. To bring the saturation down. So it almost looks like it fits. And it probably needs like a little glow around it or outer glow. So let's go to the follow me layer and click on effects, or you can double click on the area next to the name. Click on outer glow. Way too big because I was doing it for something else. And this is a small image. Maybe add a little bit of a drop shadow. I don't know. And something still doesn't look right on that, right? If you look at the container ship, everything is kind of soft and out of focus. So let's go ahead and I'm going to right click on this and convert it to a smart object. And then I'm going to add a filter. Go to blur, to Gaussian blur. Wow, that blurred it a whole bunch. You don't need a whole bunch of blur on this one because it's such a small image. I'm going to blur it about 1 pixel just to soften it. Let's see what 1.5 might be a little bit too much. 1.2, sure, why not? Perfect. The reason I did a smart object, if I decide later on that I say, well, I want that a little bit softer, I can go back into my blur, Gaussian blur, and I can change it just by clicking on it. And now that kind of sort of almost matches what it's supposed to. The color's almost okay. The blur is there. Hue and saturation, we can go in. The reason I did hue and saturation on different layers is so that we can go in and make a change if we wanted to. Drop the saturation even more. We can change the hue on it. We can do lightness on there. Okay, that's example number 1. Any questions on what I did there? Going once, going twice. Command
Okay,
W.
I'll ask a question.
Okay, ask a question.
Would you, I'm just curious about something because of something I saw as you were working there. Would you command click on the follow me layer?
Okay.
Okay, it did select just that. It looked like there was more to that a while ago when you were adding the special effects. Because it was.
It may have showed more. I don't know why it would. I know once I deleted the layer mask around it, this is all that's left in that layer now.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. But there was, I think it was when you were working with the levels and it looked like it was affecting way outside of just the sign.
That could have been before I got to the clipping mask and clipped it.
Oh, that's possible. That's possible. Okay.
Okay, close that puppy out. Do not save. And I've got another one to bring up. Let's go ahead and bring my beach up. Let's see if it works.
Oh, Michael, as an idea, because you said you were going to post that image online, if you made a little bit of a GIF with a flashing glow around the sign.
I had a big bright yellow arrow pointed to it so people could actually get what I was trying to say there.
Yeah.
Some people were offended by it, so I apologize if I offended anybody in this video today.
Here.
I have a beach scene that I shot. One of my shooting high school seniors at the end of the scene when the sunset's really kicking perfect. I sometimes will shoot it, but I'm going to show a couple of things in this. Number one, I want to make everything look a little bit different. So let me, whoops, wrong key. Command J to copy the layers, and I'm going to go to Filter, Blur Gallery, down to Path Blur. Blur Gallery to Path Blur. And you see it blurred everything just a little bit. I want to make it something a little bit more. So I'm going to drag my, on the right hand side under Blur Tools, I am going to bring speed way up. So I'm going to bring it up, well, let's say 350 as 356%, but you just do it by taste, what you want to do. If I max it out, yeah, let's max it out. Why not? It looks like a totally bizarre scene. And before I render that, let me cancel out, because if not, we'll be waiting for 10 minutes for that filter to render. So I'm going to go to crop 4:6, crop it down. There we go. Bring it back up. Sometimes it's worth the wait, sometimes it's not. So let's go to Filter, Blur Gallery, Path Blur. Bring it up almost 400%, and cool. And I'm going to go up to the top and click on OK. And it's updating. 33% right now. And if I left it at full resolution, the full size image, we would be waiting a very long time. At this point, it's time for somebody to sing a song in between. Maybe the Jeopardy thing. Oh, we got it. Cool. If you're running at full resolution, that's going to take anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes to render that filter. But I love the effect that it gives. And I am going to add, let's go ahead and open him up full size. I have a bird that I'm going to do. And we'll click on open. And we've gone through this a few times. I'm going to go to select subject. So I need to move things on my screen so I can see my top toolbar. Go to select subject. And you can see that it did a fairly good job of selection. Not perfect, but not bad. And Command Z, so I can go through that one more time. So we're going to go to the very top toolbar. If you have any of the selection tools selected, whether it be the marquee tool, the lasso tool, or any of the selection tools, quick selection, object selection, or magic wand, it'll bring up select subject at the top. Or you can go to select subject, and it will select your subject for you. And you can see as you go around the edge, it caught some water here at the front of the beak, or back part of the beak, and then the tail feathers are off a little bit. So I'm going to go to select and mask. And what I'm going to do is zoom in just a little bit so I can see what I'm doing. And I'm going to go to my refine edge brush, which is the second one down. If you go to the third one down, that's the regular brush where you can paint on or paint off. And make it a little bit smaller. And if I run with it half on the beak and half off the beak, it will select that area, I hope. And it did pretty dang good. I'm going to do it along the back of the neck here. See if that works. Please work. Make me look good. Thank you. And then on the tail feathers, you can go around the whole edge if you wanted to do and make sure you have a perfect cutout. I'm not worried about a perfect cutout right here. And probably along the leg right here. And then I'm going to, down at the bottom, I'm going to make sure output is set new layer with layer mask. I like that. You can do new layer, new document, new layer with layer mask, new document with layer mask, or can also go to selection. I'm not going to do that. It's always layer with layer mask, and here's the reason why. It shows me exactly what was cut out. And if I zoom in on the beak right here, you can see that there's a whole lot of checkerboard underneath there. So I'm going to go B for brush. I'm going to change it to a hard edge brush. Right click on the brush, take the hardness up to 100%. It's going to make it a nice hard brush. And you can see when I started to brush, brushed the wrong color. That's okay. Command Z. Go X to exchange color. So I'm going to paint with white and not black. And as I paint over it, you can see it goes into 100%. And the beak is fairly straight. So I'm going to click right at the edge where I painted, hold the shift key down and put the brush at the end. Again, hold the shift key down, put the brush at the end, and it draws a straight line for me. So I don't have to worry about drawing straight lines. If you hold the shift key down, that's where you get your straight line at. And let's do that. There's something right here I got to get rid of. And then the front of the face, a little bit bigger brush. And we're going to go to a soft round brush. So hardness down to 0. Command Z, because I screwed that color up. And that's the cool thing about working with masks, is if you get the wrong color, you just hit X and start over again. And I'm working with the mouse and not my Wacom tablet, so that's why things aren't exactly perfect. And just painting the areas that just don't look right. And if you're not sure, what you can do is put a layer in between the background layer and then fill it with a wonderful color that you're going to see. Nice slime green. And you can see where you got things that need to be fixed. So let's go here. B for brush, make sure we're on the brush. And just paint out what you don't want. And if I had my Wacom tablet working right now, the accuracy would be a whole bunch better. And I could spend the next 15 minutes on this, but I don't think you guys want to see me painting for 15 minutes, so I won't do that. I'll say it's good enough. Just make sure we have the right areas filled. Get rid of that green layer.
Can I ask a quick question, Michael?
No. Of course you can.
So when I'm drawing in Photoshop, just like you are, the outer circle of my brush is not visible. I can see the dot in the center, so I must have clicked on something to get that to go away. So it's drawing the whole brush, but it's not showing the edge of the brush.
So do you see like the crosshairs like this?
Yeah.
Okay. Could be your cap lock is on. If you hit your cap lock off, it'll bring your brush back.
Thank you so much.
You bet. And the only reason I knew that so fast is because I've done it so many times. Keep looking at it. And sometimes if you get into your preferences by accident, you can set your brush up so that you have the crosshairs on there instead of a round brush. So you can also check your preferences as well. Okay, I like what I've got, close enough for what I'm doing for today. So I'm going to drag my layer mask to the trash and hit apply. And now I have a bird. So I'm going to drag my bird. So hit V for move, drag my bird to the other image I have started. Make sure to keep holding down on your left mouse key and then drag it down where you want it. And I think that bird might be a little bit too big for the image, so it's not going to fit like I want it to. So I will hit Command or Control T for free transform, or you can also go edit to free transform or to transform. I just hit Command T because it's so much quicker and easier. I like going fast. Hold the Option or Alt key down so it goes towards the middle. Get him down, get him down. I'm going to drag him over to about there. And he looks so realistically dropped in there. Everybody would agree with me, right?
Yep.
Not even close. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make him a little bit smaller. So Command T again, hold the Option key, slide him inward. So he just kind of sort of fits in there. And the coloring on this bad bird is really bad. And he's also a little bit too bright for the scene. So what do? Go to Curves Adjustment layer, drag the brightness down, and you can see it's dragging everything. So we'll hit the clipping mask there. And we just kind of look to see what's what with him. Darkness wise is pretty close. His legs are a little bit bright still, but that's going to get better in a second. Next, I'm going to go to the adjustment layers. And I'm going to go down to Color Lookup. Color Lookup. A lot of you probably haven't seen this before. Color Lookup is a lookup table, or LUT, whatever you want to call it. It's Color Lookup. And I am going to go to all these presets. The one I like, I think, we'll see what happens. Late sunset may not be the one. It's not the one. Soft warming, not quite. Okay, let's go to soft warming, click OK. And then we'll add another color lookup table. Whoops, trash that. That didn't work. Yes, delete vector mask. I didn't mean to push that button. Go back down to color lookup table. You can also use photo filter if you want. And they have a warming filter. And again, just so it's on the bird. And you can adjust the density how you want it. Go all the way to the right. He's bright orange, or just a hint of orange on him. And he looks like he's fitting in. So we're getting close. He might be a little bit too dark. So we can go back to curves, and we can adjust the curves again because it's on its own layer. And now we're starting to look almost realistic, except we need to add a shadow underneath him to make him look like he's actually there. So what I did is I went to layer 1, which is my blurred sunset, and I'm going to add a layer above it. So by itself, this is what I have. B for brush, D for default colors, and I think I'm going to go with not quite black, but maybe a darker gray. and then zoom in so I can see what I'm doing here. I'm going to have to do some work on his outer edge as well, but B for brush. And I'm going to go with about 10% opacity and multiply. And it should start building up after a while, a little below him. It doesn't look like much, but you can see that I've got a little bit of area here that's getting darker. And to go between turning that layer on by itself and turning the other ones off, all I have to do is hit the Option or Alt key and click on the eye, and that turns on just that layer. And that is like not looking good from this close. And we'll just make it a whole lot bigger. And then fade the opacity or the fill. And if you're not happy with the bird itself, like I think the legs are not fitting in very well, I'm going to add a layer mask, B for brush. I'm going to hit X to bring up the black key. And right now I'm at 11% opacity. I have to change the mode from multiply back to normal. Otherwise the brush won't work. And what I want to do is just kind of blend in the bottom of the legs, bring up the brush to 30%. So it's like they're going into the sand and the water. And that guy is probably a little too big. So let's select both layers, the paint layer and the background copy. Command T. Hold the Option key so they both shrink at the same time. What do we need to do to make him better? Because it's not perfect in my eyes. I'm going to drag that off. Apply. Maybe on the background on the bird layer. Let's name it bird layer so we know which one we're working with. How about if we add just a slight outer glow? Very slight outer glow. That's like a little way too much. And that's not even going to work. So cancel that. Probably with the bird, zoom in a little bit so we can see what we're doing. Take my brush at, let's say 5%. So I type in 0.5, B for brush, and just kind of tone down those highlights a little bit. Change it to multiply. Multiply will darken faster than normal. And just kind of take the edges off. And you can probably add a little bit of color to it. Select like this orangish brown and just kind of paint in a little bit of orange around him to make him match in a little bit better. And if you're really crazy and you want to get wackadoodle, go to B for brush, go to star 26, which is in your stack of brushes somewhere in your original brushes that you have. You go to the star brush, and it's a little bit too big there. I'm going to take it way down. screen at 100% in white. And it's not doing very well. I was hoping to give them a little light in the eyes, but at this distance, you don't need to see light in the eyes. Any questions on what we've done so far here? I went through that really, really fast, but the one thing or two things that you want to take out of this is the photo filter, because you can do all kinds of stuff with that. You can not only do warming, but there's 85, 81, back in the old days of film, for those who use film and warming filters. You have the cooling filters, then you can add different colors as well that are in there. And basically what that does is kind of puts a color overlay over what you want to do. And then the color lookup tables, which are really cool, because I can change this now from a sunset to, let's go ahead and go up to the top up here, put all these guys into a group. So Command G, I selected all those, put them into a group. And now I'm going to put another layer on top. So I'm going to go to color lookup. And if you want to make this a nighttime, let's go to night from day. And of course, the opacity or the fill on that's probably a little bit too much. So let's go ahead and change opacity to say 60%. You can see that it just darkened it down a whole bunch there. And if you just want to darken the sky, what you can do is click on your layer mask, go to gradient filter, change it to, go to basics, black to white. And I always get this backwards, so we'll see what happens. Drag it down. I got it backwards. Command Z. You know what? Let me undo that. Go back and do that again. I got the gradient backwards. So if I'm on my layer mask, all I have to do is hit Command or Control I, and it turns the mask backwards. It inverts it. So I can just have the sky go darker, or turn it back on again. Keep the sky, have the ground go dark. So depending on how you drag your gradient out, you can do all kinds of weird stuff to it. The shorter the gradient, the sharper the line's going to be differentiating it. Or you can start lower, go up, start higher. So depending on how you want to do it, you just play with your gradient and see how you like it. So throw that away. Do another color lookup table. Go to horror blue. Nope, does not work at all. But you can go in here, soft warming look. You can do teal orange plus contrast. You can make up your own color lookup tables as well. Colin Smith does a great video on how to do that. I'm going to take that out and get rid of it. So now you've got a bird walking in the water at sunset, and it looks like you have a super long exposure because the clouds are moving, the water's moving, everything's moving. Questions, comments, concerns? None of the above. Come on, you guys got to talk to me here. You are awake, right?
Yep.
I have a
Okay.
question.
Awake? Oh, that.
At the beginning, you mentioned the overlay does the job of screen plus one other thing, but I forgot the other thing.
Screen and multiply. It does them both at the same time.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
So what I was told is Overlay uses screen blending mode at half strength on colors lighter than 50% gray and uses multiply at half strength on colors darker than 50% gray.
Okay.
Did everybody see Roy Patience chat?
I did not.
I had to giggle a little bit. My buddy Dan with his applying this technique with the birds frozen. I've done the same thing, but what I did was on the blur, the motion blur arrow,
Mm-hmm.
you can tell it where to begin and where to end. So I applied it to my birds in flight so that the blur was at the back of the bird, but not at the front. Does that make sense, Mike?
It does. Are you using motion blur or are you using the
The blur you use to blur the sky to begin with.
okay, let me
The arrows.
go there.
You want,
So
I
we
can
go to
show you if you want to share if I can share real quick.
Yeah, let me go to filter, blur gallery, path blur, and you've got the arrow that pops up.
There you go.
So you can move.
You can go to, on the path blur, there is a,
You can also bend it too.
yeah.
Mike, is that how you blurred that? Originally was path blur?
I use path blur, yeah.
Okay, because I missed that part. Yeah.
Some people use motion blur. Some people use path blur.
What's the difference?
Well, let's do,
Hutch, do you know the difference?
I'll show you the difference real quick. This one's going to be path. And then our background, I'm going to change the name to motion. So you can see the difference. I'm going to start with the motion blur. So we go to filter, blur, motion blur. And you can max it out at 2000. And that's the motion blur. So let's do path blur. We go filter, blur gallery to path blur. And we'll max it out at 500%. Click OK, and we shall wait. The good thing is motion blur is much faster. So if you're not patient, use motion blur. If you are patient, like me, I went and got a snack while this was updating when I was doing a full size one the other day. God bless you.
Thanks.
I think if I remember correctly, what I do, you see where it's checked on center blur. So I uncheck that, and then I believe that taper is where you can decide where to begin and end
Okay.
the blur.
Okay. Here's your path blur.
I like that
Here's
one.
your motion blur.
I like the path better.
Path blur, I think I like a little bit better for this technique, but motion blur does have its ways to do things. Do you have an image you could show, Hutch?
Yeah.
Okay, let me unshare. And let me go to,
Just the finished product. I'm not sure where so you can see,
okay, you got them. All right.
you can see where basically the bird's heads are sharp, but the back of the wings and the tail, you're starting to blur out.
Okay.
I looked at Dan's images with the frozen birds, sharp birds from end to end, and
Yeah.
thought, I've got to give it a little bit, even if I'm legitimately panning, I'm still going to have a little bit of motion in the wings and in the tail.
Yeah,
I
especially if they're
probably should have blurred them a little more than I did.
That's,
That looks good.
that's nice.
Actually, yeah, this is there's the yeah, and I guess with the mask, I took a little bit of it out. Now that I'm looking
Okay.
at
So you didn't blur the whole, you blurred the whole bird and then masked out the
This
front?
one I may have blurred the whole bird and then masked out the head. Looks like that's what I did. Yeah, but you know, there's a number of different ways of approaching that. This actually was a real pan. The background was. I did not blur it
Oh,
in Photoshop. I actually did that panning at the beach.
Nice.
That's impressive.
very
That's
pretty.
beautiful.
Yeah, so I think everybody thought that I did the same thing as Dan.
He's got a couple images that just blow me away with that technique. So
Yeah,
he does really good work.
it's going to put all of us that did natural panning out of business.
Not all of us. We'll keep playing anyway.
See, got to get out of the share here somehow. Stop share. There we go.
There we go.
I have I have a very sharp motorbike doing a wheelie, and I wanted to add some motion blur that's slightly curved coming into the wheelie, but I still want most of the rider to be sharp, and it's his back end where I want to add in the blur. So any advice there? This was close with the turns.
Probably just put a motion blur on the back end of the bike and then a little bit on the wheels as well. Or you're popping a wheelie, so the back wheel's the one you want moving. So you want to put a little radial blur on the back wheel. You want to make it look as realistic as you can. 'Cause if
That also, I was thinking of, I've done this at air shows where they have a lot of times they'll run cars or stuff down the airstrip, and I want to blur the background. I'll blur the background, and then I'll layer the car over it, or if there's a picture of a car. The problem becomes is you end up streaking the front and the back of the car, and that's where that term there that I was trying to remember with the path blur, that's where you can kind of correct that so it doesn't overlap with your background.
And that was the taper, right?
With the path tool.
But,
the path blur.
but not the center blur, but the taper blur inside path blur.
Yeah, the taper. Yeah, that's the thing that kind of cures that.
Thank you.
You know, basically, I'll take using that example of the car running down the airstrip at 120 miles an hour. I'll take and I'll select the car itself. I'll blur the entire background, and then take my selection of the car and overlay it. But the problem is I've got that streak of the car underneath on the blurred background. So the way to get rid of that is just to kind of, that taper, and I can't remember the entire process, but the taper will help you eliminate that.
Thank you.
What I've done is if I got something in there that I don't want blurred, then I'm going to put something over top of it. I'll do content aware fill, get rid of what's there, and then drop in what I want to drop in. But make sure that you have the shadow, drop shadow, or some type of shadow so it's connected to it. And you don't want to overdo it. You want to make sure that what you do is just like garlic, a hint of garlic, a hint of salt, and then hope it comes in perfect for you.
Yeah, recently I saw a YouTube where somebody was doing that with selecting the object and then inverting it and then content aware blurring around the outside, which did a great job of doing that.
Yeah. Any other questions, comments?
No, it's great. Thank you, Michael.
Any suggestions for next week?
Well, can I add a promo here? So PPSCV have Christy Elias coming to do a free talk on post-processing for portraits. And if you've seen her work, or if you haven't, you need to, but if you have seen it, it was in a PPC competition, and she's like a 6-time International Photographer of the Year. And it's a PPSCV do free presentations during COVID, so there's no charge, and it's on the website. So it's like this, but applied to people and mermaids and whatever else. So she does a great job. So you're all welcome.
Professional photographer, Santa Clara Valley.
I'll
Thanks.
put it in the.
If you can put it in the chat for everybody, that'd be great.